Have you ever thought just how boring or ridiculous news commentary is today? Welcome to the RealJax podcast with Jim and Larry. The RealJax podcast. From crime and politics to entertainment, you can expect something different. Now, let's get real, Jax.
Hey, welcome back to RealJax with Jim and Larry. Special guest today is Norm Brewer, retired lieutenant from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. Good friends with fellow retired Lieutenant Larry Gale over here. Pitching to you, Larry.
All right, we'll get into Norm and we'll hit our sponsors real quick. Extreme Wings, my new employer, and they've got 4 locations: 6337 Roosevelt Boulevard, 12220 Atlantic Boulevard, 11565 North Main Street, and 160 Shops Boulevard in St. Johns County. They're obviously my employer, so they get a nice plug, and the food is phenomenal.
And you have a great company car.
Yeah, I do have a great company car.
I'm so impressed.
Thank you, Cullen and Megan, for that. Tremendous Barbecue, 8927 Hurlong Road. That's out on the west side. My buddy Dylan and Terry Roundtree. Terry's his dad, and Dylan's his son. And good guys, and always look out for first responders every year in September. Outstanding barbecue, all homemade. Sides are homemade and everything. You got our third is Advanced Window Tint, and my buddy Ricky Tillman, 5024 Sunbeam Road, best window tint in Jacksonville, 3M Platinum dealer. Known Ricky forever, and wouldn't take anything I have. He does homes and commercial buildings and vehicles. Any kind of tint need, that's the place to go. So hit those real quick. And lastly is our Jim's.
My company, Secure One Protection Services, your number one choice for electronic security since 1986.
I like it.
It's getting better.
I have a camera too. That's very nice.
Practice helps.
So today's episode, sometimes you get, I don't want to make all these too formal, but you develop relationships with people over the years, and people you work with, and some people ask you, hey, why are you friends with that guy? He's such a clown, or he's cocky or whatever. But you don't realize how friendships develop. I've had friends. One of my buddies, Richie. I'll probably have Richie Smith on it. I watch that guy fist fight probably once a week. His entire life. He's all broke up now because he still will. Like, he literally will fight anybody right now. He's 54 years old. So you get to be friends with somebody because you understand them and you've had a relationship with them, and they've you find out they've got a big heart, and they'll do anything in the world for you, and they'll protect you, they'll look out for you, and Norm's that kind of friend to me. So he's been like that, and he always made me laugh. He's always had great stories, and he gave people a hard time sometimes, but comes by honestly just being in his career, and one of the brightest dudes I know, and one of the best talkers you'll ever want to be around, a gift of gab, and a great storyteller. So we were talking, and he's worked around a bunch of people, and you got this obvious upcoming sheriff's race, and you look at the people running, and one that I think he announced it to his church. In fact, I know he did. I saw the video, but I don't know if he's formally come out. Is a guy named Wayne Clark. So Norm made it to lieutenant, and obviously had to leave later on. But he was a sergeant at the time and worked for this guy, Wayne Clark, and he's had some unusual stories. And he's worked for some other people, too. I don't want to get into all the stories.
I was a lieutenant under Clark as well.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You were. Yeah, so when you rose up again. Yeah. So I'll just let Norm talk about his background. And when he left JSO, he's had several careers. He's been involved in booking bands and doing music and all that kind of stuff, and big country guy. And he worked in pharmaceutical sales.
I did.
He's had just a bunch of stuff, and now he drives his wife Margie crazy. That's pretty much his full-time job. He does roofs.
She's in here with us.
He sells roofs, and I don't know. He's just got a good story. So I want to just tell him about your background. Obviously, I know most of it, but
well, I grew up on the west side of Jacksonville, out in a little patch called White House. When I grew up out there, it was pretty much a 2-lane road with a wood bridge.
So he knows Doug.
Yeah. And went to Ed White, went to Florida Community College, left there and went over to Florida State University. Came out of college, went down to Orlando, got in the restaurant management business. So when, Larry told me about Extreme Wings, I just kind of chuckled and said, okay, we'll see how that goes. When the sun's down, when you go to work and it's down, it's dark when you get off of work in that restaurant business, and you're working every weekend and holiday. I had to come up with something different, and I was one of the ones when JSO back in 1988, before you had to be a correctional officer, and you did crossover training into sworn. But they opened it up to the general public. They did an open call at the old Coliseum. Everybody went down there and took a written test. And I was fortunate enough to get selected into that first open class, which was class 288. Went through that, hit the street running. And, my goal was always to make rank every chance I got. And short of a political appointment, which I don't think I was in line for, given my ability to vocalize my opinions, I achieved my goal. I achieved everything in the sheriff's office, that I set out to do. Towards the end of my career, certain rules apply to certain people and they don't apply to everybody. I was kind of given an ultimatum in my career or my personal life, and I can tell you emphatically I chose my personal life over my career, and if I had to do it all over again, I'd do it just the same. I have no regrets. It's one of the best decisions I ever made. I hooked on with a company out of Chicago called Abbott Labs, did a pharmaceutical sales. What's that?
You're welcome.
Yeah. Pharmaceutical sales, and did that for about 8.5 years till they do their little corporate downsizing. And somewhere in the mix there, a buddy of mine started promoting a country music singer, and I kind of got into that business. And then later on, a buddy of mine, his son started a roofing company and got into that business. And it just seems like, when people ask me, how did you do what you did? I mean, there's no plan. It just happened. You put yourself out there and you put yourself in those positions. And for me, I gave up a lot, and it cost me a lot if you're looking at terms of financial, but, peace of mind and tranquility, man, my life has been good. I have no complaints.
And he's done well. And he's always a hustler. I mean, this guy could talk his way out of a.
Sounds like it.
I put a roof on Larry's house.
He did.
Yeah. The policemen do keep me busy, and I certainly I appreciate that.
I remember you at the party, the little gathering we had at Larry's house, and talking about doing a roof.
I was the guy with the moonshine.
You were. I missed that part.
Any moonshine.
Darn, I missed the moonshine. But I remember being at his place, and you were talking about putting a roof on his house.
The old smoke you made from Tennessee. But
no. This wasn't retail, Larry. This was backwoods Georgia peach moonshine. You do recall it very well. This wasn't Crown Peach. This was the real deal. But,
that's great, Norm. Maybe we should start this episode over.
No, we're doing great. We're doing great. But you brought up Wayne Clark. So, yes, Wayne is an interesting individual. I worked for Wayne as a sergeant. Later on, when I got promoted to lieutenant, Larry and I were on the same lieutenant's list. I went to work with Wayne over in Zone 5. I know there's a couple stories there that Larry wants me to expound upon, but let me preface it with this. I always got along well with Wayne.
Yeah,
I really did. So personally,
which is unusual because a lot of people don't.
Yeah, but you know what? There are some similarities there. Wayne is not a dumb individual by any stretch. I mean, he's a very smart man. He's like all of us. He's made some pretty dumb decisions in his life, and sometimes where he hooks his wagon is the wrong place to hook it to. But I mean, I could sit down, have barbecue, and a beer with Wayne any day, and we would have fun doing it. But do you want me to just jump right in?
Yeah, let's do the example story. That's a good one.
Yeah, now I will tell the story, but Larry's already warned me not to do my impressions, so I can't do the impressions. But you learn at JSO, it's like Peyton Place. It's like any other big corporation, and there's cliques, and there's people that are in cliques, and I kind of always marched to my own little beat. I had a lot of acquaintances, very few friends, kind of liked it that way. And, if you ever get a target on your back in a corporation or an organization like that, you'll be amazed how many people will come after you. And
we're going to talk about that later. We're going to episode is burning, or Rome is burning. We're going to talk about the focus and where it has been and where it should be, as far as the sheriff's office.
And speaking on my particular story, there was several times where there were targets on my back. I always tried to make it a moving target. I didn't want to make it easy for them, so I would, kind of zig and zag, but I would stand there right in front of you too and go head up with you. But, the department decided they wanted to bring back physical agility as part of the annual curriculum. And they knew a lot of us were out of shape, so they didn't want to, hit us in the head with it, right out of the gate. So they said, okay, guys, here's the deal. We're going to implement this new physical agility training. We're going out to Huffman Road to the old academy, and part of that's going to be a 440-meter run. And you got to run it in so many minutes or seconds. I can't remember what it was. But they said the first year, as long as you participate, it won't count against you when it comes time for an annual evaluation. So, we take it for face value. That's the way it's going to be. Unless you have a moving target on your back. And then all of a sudden those rules don't apply anymore. And in my particular case, at that time, there was a moving target on my back. And there's always people in the chain of command trying to one-up themselves on the ladder a little bit, and they'll do whatever Big Brother says in order to facilitate. Yeah, get notice. And
I found that they would bend the rules for you unless they wanted to use them against you.
Well, speaking of Wayne, I will tell you. I'll tell you a story. It was he and I sitting on side by side one day, and I'll get back to this story. And here's the thing. I'll summarize it this way. There are people that are for sale, and there are people that are for rent, and there are people that are both for sale and for rent. I particularly was neither. This individual, self-admittedly, was both, okay? And if that works for him, that's great. But I went out there with a group of guys, and because it wasn't going to improve my status, by, sprinting down this 440-meter run, we participated and we jogged. And naturally, we came in a little over the allotted time. Well, fast forward to my evaluation, under physical fitness, it said below satisfactory. Now, you guys are familiar with the evaluation process with JSO, and for the listeners that are not, the way it used to be, and I'm sure it still is, that if you are below or above satisfactory in any particular category, the rater has to give specific examples that they're justifiable factors that justify that below or above a satisfactory rating. And in this particular circumstance, my rater was Wayne Clark, and he rated me below satisfactory, and his justifiable factor was 1, said that I had failed the 440 run. Well, I mean,
a couple of things about that. Even when they passed it, there was push-ups, sit-ups, climbing a wall, dragging a body, including the run. All that went into it, and even when they made it forthright that you had to pass the whole thing, you still could fail one portion of that test and still pass it. So,
One thing I learned early on in my career, and I would advise this to anybody that's going into this career, is those general orders and standard operating procedures, you need to learn every chapter and verse. Because if you're ever brought into question, that's how you respond. Is it not with your verbiage, but with their own verbiage? So in the circumstance back then was if you wanted to appeal any evaluation, you made an appointment with the division chief, which in this case was Michael Edwards. And I did that. I went through the proper protocol, set the appointment, which would require the assistant chief at the time was George Bennett, and it would require the lieutenant, the rater. Wayne Clark was my lieutenant. I was a sergeant at the time. Set the appointment. Well, FOP caught wind of it, and they caught me in the hallway, and they said, hey, man, we hear you're going to an appeal. Do you need our help? And I said, no, I've got this covered. Because what I had done was I went up to personnel, and I asked to see Wayne's personnel file. Now, if you ever go to personnel and you review whether you're an employee or a private citizen, it's public record. All you have to do to look at that file is sign your name in the ledger that on this date, I'm looking at this person's file. And I did that. I signed it very clear. So if there was ever any question about me being there, it will always be a part of that record. And I went through his file. I made copies of a few pieces of paper and took them with me. Went down to Edwards' office, and of course, Assistant Chief Bennett was there. Clark was there. Went in. Now, the way it was set up, Larry, was the Chief Edwards was behind his desk.
Patrol Chief of West.
Patrol Chief. There was me, Lieutenant Clark, and Assistant Chief George Bennett. So we start going through the line items, of this evaluation, and without doing my impressions, which I know the listening, if you ever catch me out in public and you ask me, I'll give you the full taste, but I won't do it here. But anyway, Edwards didn't pick up on the fact that this cannot be held against me because that was the rule that predicated the exercise to begin with, okay? And I tried to explain that to the chief, but it was like a breeze going right by his ears, like, He didn't get it. So I pounded my fist. I said, Chief, I can guarantee you there are people on this department that participated in that exercise, failed the 440 run based on the time that requirement, and still got at least a satisfactory rating on their evaluation. Went right by his head. My goal was not to walk in there and hit him in the head with a hammer. I want him to ask me to actually pull out the hammer and hit him in the head with it. So that's what I did. I said it twice. I said, Chief, I can guarantee you. And he finally looked at me. It's hard, Larry, for me to tell this story without the impression.
Mike
but
Edwards had a funny vernacular.
He did have a lisp. Let's just say very distinct. But he said
saying things twice.
Well, he talks in third person.
Sergeant Brewer.
Yeah, he talks in third person.
Yeah, he does talk in third person. I got that.
Anyway, he looks at me. He said, God, Larry, you want me to? Okay.
I mean,
no, I won't do the impression. He said, Sergeant Brewer, do you have any? He said in samples, but it was examples. Do you have any in samples? Yeah. So I unzipped my shirt. I pulled out these pieces of paper. Folded up, handed it to him. I said, sample this, and I handed it to him. Just like that. And he opened it up, and his expression was this.
Pretty gutsy, man.
Well, he looked at Clark. He said, Lieutenant Clark, Sergeant Brewer just handed him results of your 440 run, and you have failed the 440 run too.
Yeah, you received.
You received
a
satisfactory evaluation. So Wayne, at this point, it was really uncomfortable in the room for at least 3 people. I was feeling pretty good myself. I mean, at that point, I was pretty much like I'd had 4 gummies and a cold beer. I was kind of like sit back. I was like chilling, like, oh yeah, boys, here you go. Chew on this. So I'm sitting there. I looked over at George Bennett, and I don't know if you can imagine a grown man kind of curling up in the chair, but he was kind of in a curl mode. Oh my God,
embarrassed and pissed.
Yeah, I mean, it's not fun to be beat with your.
To be outsmarted.
Yeah. So
blatantly.
Well, Wayne, being Wayne, he said, now, Chief. Now, the week before all that, I was doing my bike-a-thon and my muscles in my legs, And I said, no. I said, Chief, there's no precursor or questions as to what you were doing the week before the exercise. Either you did pass it or you did not. Now, listen, Lieutenant Clark participated. No, he did not set the best example, okay, by
as
a leader. But he should not be penalized because he did participate in the exercise, nor should I be penalized. I said, now, if anything, what we should do here, okay, is have leadership set a better example. So if anybody should be on an improvement plan in this scenario, it should be Lieutenant Clark. I don't know if we need to buy him some running shoes, buy him a gym membership, whatever we need to do. But he needs to set a better example so that his subordinates can, next year when they participate in this event, we'll all, pass and get a better rating on our evaluation. We went over a couple other topics. I will leave it at this. Chief Edwards finally looked at me because I think they were getting tired of getting wore out on every line item.
You were enjoying it, though.
Oh, I was relaxed, dude.
Yeah.
I wish I had that on video.
Me too.
Because I could sell that.
I would have plugged it in today.
Well, yeah. So, yes. Mm-hmm. So Chief Edwards finally looked at me and said, Sergeant Brewer, just how would you like for your evaluation to read? I said, I wanted to read factually. Either I did or I didn't. And if I did or I didn't, then I expect you as the rater and the reviewer to give specific examples as to what justifies that rating. I can tell you it all got changed.
Obviously.
But, it goes back to the story of, and I guess you guys are going to touch on it later, in life, and again, I personally like Wayne. Yeah. I really, really do.
Yeah, if you had him away from work, he was just one of those guys.
He's a good dude. He's one of the guys. He's one of the guys, and everybody can relate to. But Wayne had an agenda, and it was Wayne's agenda, and, unfortunately for Wayne on that day, he thought that he was going to use me as part of that stepping stone because, like I said, if you're down at JSO or any major company and you rock the boat a little bit or you're outspoken, you do have a target. It's just, I don't know if it's human nature or what it is, but it's not. It's
I've felt that.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Overall, though, I will say this. I did 15 and a half years with Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, keychain and a T-shirt. I enjoyed my job. Okay. I love the community. I enjoy getting out doing police work. A lot of people think that the hardest job for a police officer is working the streets. That's actually the easiest job if you're allowed to do it. The hardest part of the job is actually internal stressors. And unfortunately, it creates an atmosphere to where a lot of guys that you don't want to work. I will tell you this, the more actual police work you do, the more problems you're going to have. The system is not set up for you to go out and do proactive police work anymore. It's just not that way.
Not currently.
It's all reactive. Yeah.
There's
no time. They're humping calls nonstop anyway.
I do have a lot of stories. If you want to bring up some, I'll talk about them specifically. But, Wayne has always had an interest in politics. The last I heard was, he was a Republican. I just heard the other day he's now switched parties.
Yeah.
That's a Charlie Crist move right there.
So I was about to say, he lost all credibility.
Yeah, I wish him the best, but based professionally on what I know, no, I'd go out and have a beer with him, but no, I wouldn't support Wayne in that race, and I really don't understand why he's even getting in the race. Quite frankly, I don't understand that at all. But maybe he has his reasons, and I wish him all the best. But no, I would not be supporting him as a candidate just based on my own personal experiences. You only get one term with me, okay? I'm not one to once you make the we allowed to cuss in here?
Yeah.
Once we make the platinum shit list with me, you stay on the platinum shit list, and he's a card-carrying member of the platinum shit list, but. I like him, but he's still on that platinum shit list with me. So no, you don't come off of that. For me personally, for the sheriff's race, I want to see who all the players are. My two biggest topics right now, given the political climate of the country, is I want to make sure that the candidate that I support does not support qualified immunity.
Getting rid of qualified immunity.
Getting rid of it, yeah, and does not. And the other thing was. Civilian review boards.
Yep.
That's really the only points that the left has to fire at law enforcement. What I learned this a long time ago about law enforcement. This is what the general public needs to understand. Your police department, your community, okay, that police department that you have. If you don't like it, understand where it came from. The quote that was given to us back in the late 80s was, "You are a direct reflection of the community in which you serve." Okay? That was missed. I don't even think it gets said anymore. But if you have a problem with your police department, you need to look internally at your community, because that's where we get the people that serve the community. It's out of that community.
That's where the pool's coming from. That's the pool they're pulling from. Yeah.
I'll say this, and I know I'm being kind of didactic here. You guys really aren't asking me a lot of questions, but
it's Norm. You don't need to ask you a lot of questions. I just turn you on and let you run.
Listen,
good.
I'm an 11th generation Floridian. I've been around a long time. Okay, my family's been around a long time. Okay, right out of St. Augustine, the original settlers. All right, let's talk about Jacksonville. Jacksonville, to your point, has always been reactive. It's never been proactive. We've had Democratic sheriffs. We've had Republican sheriffs. We've had Democratic mayors. We've had Republican mayors. Guess what? The problems have never changed. So if you want to take a snapshot over the last 40 years in Duval County, the definition of insanity is with every administration, because it seems like the same things are getting done or not getting done, and we're getting the same negative results.
Well, we said this on a different show at one time that every politician, every sheriff, every mayor comes in with the same
segments. See how he does me?
The same thing.
One of my segments,
saying the same thing every time, and usually by the time that second term rolls around, they've given up because they haven't fixed anything. They haven't changed anything.
I said my buddy of mine had a quote. You know Rich Bowie?
Yeah.
Rich is kind of outspoken, but he's a funny guy. I mean, he is.
He might have read one of my books or something.
Yeah,
you never know.
Did. You never know. Yeah, one of your books. I didn't even know you had books. But I asked him for this. He had this quote: "The farther away you get from the sharp end, the more you focus on minutia," which is true. So, in police work, as they rise through the ranks, as Norm was talking about, they become for rent or for sale. instead of having, a mindset that develops a better agency. So the politics start driving the agency more than the agency trying to actually be successful. And guys get away from the sharp end, and they forget what's going on in the street. And I talked about the numbers, the IACP report, and how we need to overlay and look at the assets, and giving the guys enough time to actually do police work. But it's almost like it's not wanted anymore, And if you can get back to the point that you drive the change and create, because we're undermanned, or JSO is undermanned compared to other agencies. We're like 1.8, 1.9 per thousand, and the average is 2.4, 2.5, somewhere around there, maybe 2.7. But we haven't focused on that. We're not driving that, and we're gonna have to change the mindset around here. Whoever's running for office is gonna have to do.
Well, there's got to be a big change that hasn't happened since I've been around.
Looking back,
like a paradigm shift or
Glover
something.
was probably not my favorite sheriff, but looking back at some of the stuff he did, he was probably one of the better ones.
Groundbreaking. Yeah, he made some pretty significant changes.
I'll be honest with you. I had many interactions with Sheriff Glover, mostly on Saturday morning at the car wash, and never had one issue with Nathaniel Glover.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, Nathaniel Glover would see me at the car wash, and he'd always come over, and he would always say, "Brewer, tell me what's really going on." Because he wasn't getting it. Now, I will tell you, I had serious issues with some of his underlings, okay? Yeah. Just like there were underlings in the administration that followed him that I had serious issues with. I never had a problem with John Rutherford. John Rutherford was the captain of the academy when I first came on. I think every person in that position, if they had an opportunity to go back and redo their term, there would have been things that they would have changed.
That's probably any
job, but Glover, I thought Glover did a pretty good job actually, and was out there. Now the current sheriff, to be honest with you, I don't know that much about him. Pat Ivey worked for me when he first made sergeant. Pat came over and worked for me in Zone 5 as a sergeant. I can speak very emphatic that Pat was one of the best sergeants that ever worked for me. Smart as a tack, very responsive. I've had a couple issues here recently with some things that had come to my attention that I actually called Pat direct on, and he plugged and played. I mean, he ran with it, so it wasn't, he took the phone call and we were able to handle what needed to be handled. But Mike, I know the only thing that really sticks in my mind about Mike is when the 27 people thought they were going to block the Hart Bridge, and he sent people up there and put them in jail and then put their ass on the front page of the newspaper the next day. That's my sheriff there. That's the guy that I'm going to support.
Straight.
But I do believe, when I was a kid coming up, you had the officer friendlies with the puppets in the schools. I keep thinking back to whether it's Democrat or Republican, to the conversation we were just having. We got to change something because we're getting the same net negative result regardless of what partisanship is in office, and it's got to stop. And for me, if you're asking me personally my opinion on something like that, I think it's got to start at the young people. There's an old saying that everybody is created equal. I don't believe that. I think spiritually we're all created equal because we're all sinners, okay? But socioeconomically, we are so far apart. Whether you're white or black, it doesn't really matter. There is a great divide in this country. Used to, we had 3 socioeconomic classes. Now we have the have and have-nots, and a lot of us in the middle class are trying not to slide down into have-nots. But we need to do something back with the young people. When I came through, we had vocational training at school, Westside Skills Center. Mm-hmm. These people can't even walk and chew gum right now. They're coming out of high school. They can't drive a nail.
Me and Jacob,
agree.
I'm going to have Jacob on. He's doing an apprenticeship right now, and he said, Dad, I want to talk about my generation. Well,
it's all electronics and button pushing now. They took the trades away and all that stuff, and it's all computer school. I mean, they're teaching.
But one of the things, I will tell you this, I was working with a company, and there was a guy there named Carl Trimble, friend of mine, black guy. Played running back at Bishop Kenny, went on to Furman, and had a short stint in the NFL. Great guy, and supports Episcopal. I think his kids went to Episcopal. But he does a lot in the community, for the underprivileged, kids and stuff. But he brought something to my attention, and I and this bothers me ever since he told me that, you go into certain public high schools in Duval County, and certain public high schools have an sundry of resources for those kids, okay? Then you go to other high schools or middle schools or elementary schools, and they may have 2 computers in there for the kids to share. Now, listen, if we're going to have this serious conversation, then by God, let's put all the resources on the table. How can you expect a child, whether he's white, black, purple, or polka dotted, to compete at a level if you're not going to provide them with resources necessary? And I think that is the big remiss, that we kind of whitewash it.
Well, we know we've got to.
Maybe we're getting off topic here.
No, this is part of the topic. Is you criminals don't. Most people don't become a criminal at age 40 years old. They kind of become being groomed as a criminal as a child.
Yep.
It's their environment, who they're hanging out with, it's their family, things like that. The problem is people think the police are supposed to go out and fix these kids, and it's the families. It's the broken families, and the communities are not coming together regardless of where the community is. So they blame it on the police that these kids are 18 years old out toting guns and shooting each other and stuff like that, because it all starts at home, man. Or so the next best place where they can get good influence, because you can't drag them all to church, you nailed it, is the schools. So
schools and after-school programs, athletics. I grew up in team sports. I'm a big proponent of that.
I didn't have a really good father figure, and some of the most influential people in my life growing up are some of my teachers.
Yeah.
My shop teachers. One shop teacher used to take me and a buddy down to his farm in Welborn on the weekends, 1,000-acre farm, put our butts to work, 15 years old. But
that's horse country down there.
I'll never forget it. He paid us, not much, paid us, fed us, and it was the closest thing I had to a dad at the time. But it's 15 years old, man. I was running that fence line of, I can go hang out with these guys and we can go smoke out all day, or I can go to the farm with Mr. Miller and my buddy and do cool stuff. So,
yeah, when I see people or communities taking ownership and not making excuses, then I will support that 1,000%. But historically, it's easier to sit back and just make excuses, and be that victim. I don't buy into that. I just posted on my Facebook page today about a young black kid who went on his own and raised $22,000 on his own and bought diapers for single mothers. Now, you say, well, that really doesn't mean, no, that's character. Okay, that's character.
Yeah.
And my take on it is this. I don't care where you come from socioeconomically. I really don't care. If you have that will, you will find a way.
You can become the president of the United States.
Hey, so I support any individual that's willing to put forth that effort. And, that got me in trouble in the sheriff's department as a supervisor. I'm going to be honest with you. Let's just, you want to call it?
Go ahead.
Listen, there's a bunch of lame-ass policemen in law enforcement, and they were there at JSO. They clocked in and they clocked out, and they tried to do as little as possible. They were not real police.
And that's, to the viewers, that's not, and listeners, that's not necessarily picking on JSO. That's any police agency anywhere, because you got human beings working there.
That's right. So,
or they rise through the ranks, and we'll get into that Romans Burning episode. But I've got a copy of a memorandum that was revised at least twice that focuses on hat patches.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we had to have committees and uniform committees and all the way up to directors and staff.
A lot of waste of time, man.
And developed one, and not only was it important enough to create all these meetings, to have all these directors and chiefs and everybody involved, to create a memorandum, it was revised 2 more times.
You got to meet in order to... You got to meet for the meeting.
So how much resources have we now wasted on hat patches that the public knew nothing about?
Well,
as opposed to what they should be worried about is the crime that's going on,
like
crime in Jacksonville.
Sounds like somebody's trying to justify their job or their position. They obviously don't have enough to do, so they're like, well, I got to come up with something.
Because there's too many of them.
Right, too top heavy.
Yes.
When I look at an officer that, for whatever reasons, incompetence was defined by the written directive as an inability or unwillingness to perform a job task. Okay, that's their words, not mine, but I do believe those. Well, an inability to perform a job task is a training issue. The onus of that was on me as a supervisor to make sure that those officers under my command had the resources and training to go out there and effectively do their job. An unwillingness to perform a job task, that's a disciplinary action, okay? And it should be swift and it should be to the point. Now, I put those officers that are not performing at a level that they should be in 2 different boxes. Okay, one is they're just sorry-ass police officers, okay? And if they were a milkman, they'd be a sorry-ass milkman, okay? If they were an electrician, they'd be a sorry-ass electrician. They're just sorry-ass people, okay? They don't want to work. They want to collect a check. The others are, they've been beat up by the internal stressors. And I can tell you that at about the 7-year mark for every policeman is a pivotal time in your career. It's either get out, get promoted, or find something other than the street. Now, I stayed on the street for 15 and a half years. Probably the street is probably the toughest job out there. But yeah, I think a lot of the people that are underperforming falls into one of those two categories. I say 95% of them. How do you bring that guy out that you know has the ability to do the job? Well, it goes back to the mindset of the administration, and are they backing their officers? Are they allowing them to do the job? Or are we just agents of the William Morris Agency, and it's all public relations, which every administration kind of here of recent has had. It's more of a PR thing. We're more worried about what special interests think about while the crime rate is going through the roof. I mean, Jacksonville
we
used
got a
to be
mascot
Miami.
line dances, but we don't have police on the street.
I mean, you talk about Florida. When we were coming up, Miami was always murder capital. Per capita, Duval County is.
Yeah.
Duval County
15
is.
years at least.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous.
13 or 14.
But the whole dynamics of policing is, we're in a big change. Wouldn't you agree that it's changing? So what used to work is no longer allowed
It always changes,
or
but
effective.
The core basic
but it's
principles never change.
No, I agree with that. But we are in a major shift now, mainly through media pressure and some political pressure. Through the defund the police and get rid of qualified immunity and all that stuff. So the whole way that guys like you policed, that's changing, and a lot of it's not even, I don't want to say permissible anymore, but not acceptable. Even though it was effective, it's just not acceptable anymore. So we're getting into unacceptable ways of policing. It's just not.
The problem is we've gotten away from
effective.
basic tenets of simple policing, the old beat system, the old officers walking the beat, the contact with the community, the knowing the community. We've gotten so far
Get out
away
of the
from
car
that
and beat the
because
people.
we've created all these specialized positions and not had enough in the actual locations, creating some ownership where they know the families, where they develop relationships with those in the community, they rebuild the trust with that community. And everything's a specialized position, or this special job for this crony, or whatever we can do. This guy with 5'11's carrying a Starbucks cup, walking around all day not doing a damn thing. So
maybe it's coming full circle.
Well, let me talk about that, Jim.
Yeah.
So here's what I see. I see that the social mores of this country dictate law enforcement policy. And if your city is very liberal, okay, you're going to have a very liberal law enforcement department. Why? Because your pool comes from your community. Right. All right, plain and simple.
Agreed.
The problem is conservatives still remain silent. We allow the left to dictate social mores in our communities, and we allow the left to dictate policy change. All right. I have an issue when you tell me as a law enforcement officer, okay, that I have to lower my standard of enforcement because the criminal element can't take right from wrong and you executing enforcement on them.
Seattle's a good example.
Good example. Now listen, if you want to go out there tomorrow and legalize marijuana and it's no longer criminal, then do it. And guess what? Police will not arrest you for it. Mm-hmm. If you want to go out there and decriminalize going 30 miles over the speed limit, then decriminalize it, okay? And guess what? You won't get stopped for that. We only enforce the laws that are on the books. The problem has been, okay, where now we're doing selective enforcement, okay? We're cooking the books. We're not doing what we should be doing. The school system was a prime example, okay? For me, it's a crime that if you tell people under your command that a kid committed a felony in the school and you're not going to properly document that, okay, for me, that's falsifying a record. I mean, that's a crime. You should be arrested for it.
Duval County's under grand jury investigation for that. Duval County.
But they're cooking those books in order to keep those dollars coming in.
Where does Wayne Clark work?
Well, I don't know. Is he still there?
No, I think he resigned.
Well, they got Greg Burton coming in there now, which for me, I remember Greg when he was carrying his binders under his books. Yeah. Greg's a sharp dude, and I've made a couple public comments on Facebook that it's definitely a change for the better, and I wish Greg all the best because he's got some cleanup to do over there.
He does.
That's a tough job over there, though.
Yeah.
You can't really do
Greg's got a lot of integrity,
police work over there because you're
Greg
dealing
Burton
with
has a lot of integrity, though, and he'll do the right thing, regardless of how it's perceived. Yeah.
But our job as law enforcement, or whoever's doing it this day and time, Larry and I we don't worry about that anymore. Well, we do worry about it, but we just don't do it anymore. We are only going to enforce the laws that the public says are still valid.
Right.
Okay. And I'm a firm believer of equal distribution of enforcement. And
it's an equal opportunity thing.
Hey, listen, I always told a guy, look, man, you're going to jail for 6 months, and that's an occupational hazard. Yeah. You should have figured that into your business plan. Your ass is going to go away for 6 months. I tell him that.
We just had a guy in here that was took him a while to get that.
Yeah, I mean, you decide you want to be a criminal. Okay, I'll support you. I'll do my job. I'll put your ass in jail. Okay, part of your job is you're going to go out and make some money. You're probably not going to pay taxes on it, so it's tax-free income. But when I do catch you, you're going away for 3 months to 6 months. Figure that into your business plan. Your ass will not be making money for 6 months out of the year.
Right.
That's the game. And to go back to what you said earlier about police work the way we did it, okay? There is always bad apples in every group, okay? I never understood any police officer having to fabricate probable cause. There's so much, I mean, there's not a day that went by.
Well, they're not rocket
that
scientists. They'll give it to you.
They'll hand it. I mean, but the bad guys haven't gotten the memo that it's not full contact anymore. As a matter of fact, they've escalated. And the problem is, just as we're seeing right now, policemen are being massacred, okay? And this crap started with Barack Obama, okay? At what point do we as a society, both left and right, come together and say enough is enough?
It's not just police, though. It's a larger perspective of authority in this country that kids are not being taught what authority is and what, working within a system that we all have, a society of rules.
Right.
They don't like it. And police are just the outlet. They're just a target for the
we're the enforcement arm. We're the enforcement
arm. There's no consequences for anything. It's for the youth right now. Like some of these kids getting in trouble in school and committing felonies and getting off. And getting away with it, they're going, hey, we're just going to.
Or if you're in Duval, you don't even get it documented. They give you a demerit and make you clean the cafeteria in an
afternoon. Punch a teacher and you're okay.
So what does that tell you? Man, that wasn't so bad. I might try that again. Yeah. I'll take a chance again. I'll roll the dice on that again.
I've coached sports and I've dealt with kids that come from those neighborhoods, and I can tell you there is no better place for them to be after school than on an athletic field, under structure, learning teamwork,
discipline,
and they carry. I promise you, they carry that throughout their. Doesn't mean they're going to be perfect in life,
unless they get away and join the military or something like that.
Yeah,
but that requires toughness, and there seems to be this in some communities and some cities we're just not allowed to be tough anymore. We have to be gentle and soft, and you can't yell at these kids on the field. And I remember my coaches dropping the F-bomb and cussing, and that's just how it was. It's like the Marine Corps. You go through the Marine Corps boot camp now, ain't the Marine Corps boot camp it used to be, and they're cranking out some weak people.
I got news for you. Life is a competition, and there is no such thing as a participation trophy. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
There's first place and everybody else is last. And listen, it's okay as long as you get up that
Ricky
day.
Bobby, we appreciate
Ricky
that.
Bobby. Slingshot.
Yeah.
Listen, as long as you as an individual get out of your bed that day and you do the best you can that day, then that's all that can be asked of you. The problem is we're telling kids to stay in the bed. We'll do it for you. And oh, by the way, we'll send you a certificate.
But you left JSO. You didn't feel sorry for yourself. You jumped right into the next thing at Abbott Labs, and then right after that, you started booking bands. Hey, Toad Lick Music Festival in Dothan, Alabama. You do that,
dude. I booked some of the biggest names in entertainment: Kid Rock, Hank Jr., Chris Stapleton. A lot of people don't know this, but I brought Chris Stapleton to town. Before anybody knew him, I had him play Mavericks. I brought Luke Combs in. I brought Old Dominion in. Larry, you've kind of followed me. I mean, and I do that not because...
You had Aaron Lewis.
Great dude, great American.
When he kind of left rock and roll and started in the country.
And I do that because I love music. I'm passionate about it.
There you are.
And I recently hooked on with a company called 16 Creative. What we do, and segue in here a little bit, but so boxers, wrestlers, entertainers, athletes, when you're making millions of dollars for Big Brother, they've got a whole team there to support you. Okay. But when your career's over and you're no longer that guy or that lady, guess what? There is nobody there to support you. Now, you have built a brand, you're a name, you're a household name, but guess what? There's no mailbox money coming in. So what 16 Creative has done, they've launched a wrestling collection and a military collection, and they're about to do sports and entertainment, is going out and creating e-commerce for these folks to extend their brands and their legacy. And some of them have already passed, so they're signing contracts with the estates. I mean, there's value there. Some of these people are living in poverty, literally. And I won't mention any, but some of these boxers, they made, I mean, I don't feel sorry for them. They made a lot of money, but they can't formulate a sentence because they're punch drunk and they're living in a 900 square foot apartment and having somebody else pay their bills. It's ridiculous. So this company is owned by Ted DiBiase Jr., who was a WWE superstar. His dad was $1 Million Man. I handle all the day-to-day bookings for Ted Sr. and for Ted Jr. Signed the estate of the Junkyard Dog, who passed away. Yeah. He was best man at Ted Sr.'s wedding. Hacksaw Jim Reynolds, Jim McMahon. When Ray Mercer was at the Fights for Guns and Hoses here recently, taught with him. He's coming on board. I've actually got him booked at a veterans retreat for suicide awareness up in Ridgeland, South Carolina. We're all going up for there. That's a Mark Chestnut concert that day. And Jay Schroeder, who was a Super Bowl quarterback with Washington Redskins, he lives out in Vegas right now, just got remarried. So he's between Vegas and Utah. Looks like we're going to do some business with him. He's in with a company, Sons of Liberty. I'll go ahead and plug them, CBD, because I'll tell you right now, I mean, CBD, if you're over 40 and you're not taking it, then the body needs it. A lot of medicinal properties for that, for CBD, and Sons of Liberty is what he supports. And what they do is equine therapy, where they do horse rescue, and then they bring in veterans with PTSD, and it's on a farm that Tony Curtis, the actor, did horse rescue outside of Vegas. And it's kind of, one-stop shop where you go out there and the veterans and their families will come in and they'll interact with the horses that have been rescued, and it, kind of levels their playing field a little bit. But, yeah, I mean, so I'm always trying to stay active. I love helping law enforcement objectives and also military. I bleed red, white, and blue. Bottom line. And, like Larry said earlier, if you don't want my opinion, then don't ask me, because I will tell you what it is.
No, you don't have to ask him. He's still going to give it to you.
And, at the end of the day, what you do with that's up to you. But what you see is what you get. And I've always kind of been that way, and there's a reason behind that. But
sometimes a strong personal opinion doesn't fit into an organization.
No, it doesn't.
That you came from or this guy came from, and
it doesn't mean we're opposed to the team concept.
No, not at all. But sometimes
you see something that, sometimes you get that kind of personality. You see something that could be built better, or they're making a mistake in the way something's, being directed, and you're just like,
well, there's a lot of
this.
There's a lot of people that keep their mouth shut because they're afraid they may not get promoted, and then there's the guys like y'all that
don't want the target.
They don't want the target, that are like, look, I got to speak up, and it may be counterproductive to making career moves, but you're doing the right thing.
Well, let me go back and clarify a point that I made earlier when I was talking about lame-ass police officers. If you take an organization with 3,000 or 4,000, we're talking about a minority, okay? For the most part, those people are great people. They're hardworking people. They're family people. All they really want to do is go to work, do their job, go home and be with their families, okay? The problem I see has been the climate and the environment, that if you truly go out there and do real police work, okay, which in my opinion still is a full contact sport, okay, because the bad guys they've actually escalated the contact, right. Okay. Police work is still a contact sport, regardless of what anybody wants to tell you out there in the media world or whatever. It's still contact. It's the most thankless job on this planet. And I respect anybody that puts on the uniform, whether it be military, fireman, first responder, and goes out there and does that. It's a sacrifice. It is a sacrifice. If Larry, you may have updated statistics, but when I came on, the life expectancy of a police officer, if he did a full term, is 2.5 years post-retirement, and he's dead. My first sergeant died on the job of a heart attack. My first training officer died on the job of a heart attack. Heart attack and suicide kill more law enforcement officers than anything else.
Yeah, you got to have
Crawfish are looking up. Crawfish been quiet today, but I've seen him over there lurking around.
You got to have a real love and passion for it, because if you try to do it just as a job, you just.
It's within 5 years now, so it's
awesome. So it's 5.
12 years less than half than that of other people.
How much? What is it now?
It's 5 years, but life expectancy of 12 years less than that of other people.
Or if you do like me, you leave at 15, you live a lot longer.
Yeah, I said they should have a mandatory 50-year-old retirement or something.
Well, hey, and I don't
Y'all
think
make me go off on the pension again.
I do not. Well, I'm going to address this because I don't think the member.
You're going to have to be on again.
I don't think a member should have to vote for a raise and give up a pension in order to get the raise. That is the biggest cockamamie BS. Okay, and
we'll get into that.
And I'm not a fan of that mayor either. But listen. He comes from a long line of even Republicans that sat there at the PAC meetings and promised this and delivered something.
I think we're all a little shocked about that. That's a whole. Like he said, that's a whole.
Public safety mayor, and the FOP's done a good job negotiating, obviously. But that joker came back after this when he didn't sell JEA and all these other things, and came back to the table with a 1, 1, and 1. That's a slap in the face. That doesn't keep up with inflation or cost of living.
Speaking of politics, Larry, I mean. What's your story? Because
hey, we're at the end of the segment there, Jim.
we can do part 2 with Norm Brewer, though.
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's do it. You want to do it now?
No, we don't have time. We're at our limit today.
Well, hopefully I didn't offend anybody, and if I did offend you, then
we don't care.
Yeah, then tough shit. It is what it is.
Jinx, we don't care. We're here to just be real.
About what? Yeah, so I have been. So my District 11 council person, I will tell you this, is he's termed out, and I'm being.
Who is that?
Danny Beckman.
Okay.
And he's running for property appraiser, and I'm being quizzed on whether or not I'll throw my name in the hat. And I will say this: there have been people that have. Because we're having some issues out there with the waste transfer station in Mandarin, and I'm pretty vocal about that. But I'm not committed to it yet, but I'm certainly giving it a lot of thought, maybe in 2023 of running for District 11.
Absolutely.
And there again, I'm the haters I hate. But if you want to
run a business, you've done public service, you're a great orator, you're a great storyteller, you're full of shit about half the time. But if for that position, let me ask you this: would you support a pension coming back to the new police officers who are now in the 401A?
I would get out of the 401 as quickly as I can.
All right. So
it's
you
ridiculous.
Just passed my PAC endorsement.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you can't sit there and expect those people to do that job for 20 years without a guarantee.
Unless you give them a lot of money up front. It's one or the other.
No, they still got to have a safety net of some kind. They don't even have Social Security. So,
But I think the city's going to learn that lesson on their own.
They are.
But if I'm in that position and that was become before me,
invested in 3 years, they're already hauling ass.
Well, I can tell you right now, if I'm in that position, I would vote the 401 out as quickly as possible.
Well, yeah. I don't know. They're going to get raises and all that kind of stuff. But those they'll see, and by then that politician will be out of office. It'll be a crisis, and I have to come back and fix it like they do everything else.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of touch points that are, and I've already touched on one of them with the young people. That would be a lot of focus for me, whether I'm in an office or not. I mean, yeah, that's where I'm at. I mean, I think that I'm tired of whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, we're getting the same negative results. I'm sick of it.
You're right, though. It's never changed.
No,
something's got to happen. Now, there's other counties where the change has been made and it's been pretty effective, but I don't know if that style would work in Jacksonville. For some reason, they talk tough, but once they get in the office, it's like some secret person comes down and goes, you're not going to be able to do that. Not here in Jacksonville.
Well, if he gets in office, I can assure you it won't be,
it won't be me.
No.
Because I'm talking about from policing.
Yeah.
Policing and mayor, that making these kind of changes that they're happening in other counties, and they're getting tough on crime, and it's working. But just like,
but you can't. It's not just about being tough on crime. It's not just about. We'll talk about this. It's not. In fact, the Rome is burning segment. We'll just have Norm on that one because I think it'll be
Norm would be perfect for that.
Yeah.
Maybe another guest. We might have to just get a room full of people here. By the way, mutual friend of ours said to say hello to Storm and Norman.
Uh-oh.
So you probably know who I'm talking about.
Who is it?
Does more than one person call you Storm and Norman?
Yeah, that was my nickname coming up.
Okay, I'll fill you in later.
Okay.
I told him you were coming on.
My wife's here, so if it's an old girlfriend, I neither confirm
her
or
and the dog. Her and the dog.
Yeah, brought little Memphis.
That's a good dog too.
That's the dog's name, Memphis.
Memphis, yeah.
Of course it is.
He's an Elvis fan.
Yeah. As is Norm. Look at Memphis. They knocked him out. I guess.
But no, guys, I do appreciate this opportunity, and I appreciate what you guys are doing. And you mentioned roofing. I switch gears. Alan bought Dibble Roofing. I think I'm gonna throw some sponsorship money y'all's way, so y'all can, not forget me when I'm not here. You can mention Norm at Dibble Roofing.
We'd love to have it.
Yeah, we'll give you guys some
Alan
sponsorship.
doesn't have the same.
So America's Best Roofing is still there, but Wayne Estes, who owns Estes Heating and Air, he was best friends with John Dibble. They had been in business. His actual office was the old fire station over off Old St. Augustine and University. He passed away. And Wayne called me and said, "Hey, are you guys interested? I mean, to buy the business." And I called up Alan, went and met with him, and Alan struck a deal. When you have a legacy roofing company there that has a great reputation, been in business since 1949, and the phone's still ringing,
old name and phone numbers.
Yeah, you do not change it. And so, we'll write business under any company, but I promote the Dibble Roofing.
Well,
now.
we're working on Jim's working on an LLC and an EIN and all. We'll have a bank account and everything. So we're going to do it the right way.
So that cash I gave you before to say all those great things
I was
about
wondering why he keeps doing all these sponsorships. I'm like, how come we haven't seen any money?
I haven't gotten any money from any sponsor. I said, look, we'll do it for free.
He said he was a 501(c), so I gave him some money. No, I'm just teasing. I did not do that. The haters will start hating on that.
The Larry LLC.
Yeah, but no, guys, I'll be more than happy to come back, and
we'd love to have you.
I think you at least know what you're going to get.
Yeah, maybe we get even more next time.
We'll bring some Crown or some peach moonshine, and we'll loosen up a little bit. I'll even get Larry to tell the story about the time we were out at Sergeant's in service, and we had to stick around after the class and have a conversation with the chief and set him straight. Sauber. Yeah, we had to set Mr. Wonderful straight.
We love those stories.
Yeah, that one actually is a good one.
Somebody came close to an ass whooping that day.
Yeah, no.
I had a tear in the corner of my eye.
To imitate Larry, I'll imitate Larry when the
come
chief,
on, whatever.
He was about ready to go day on his ass.
I try not to make him mad.
But I think they're buddies now. They exchange Christmas cards and stuff.
Get along. I like you get to know him. He's like Wayne. He's one of those guys you talk to him away from the job.
He's a normal person.
Somebody else. It's weird.
I'll take your word for it.
Okay.
Well, that was Leonard for me.
Leonard,
seeing him around work, he was one person, but getting him, in the kitchen hanging out with, he was like, this ain't the same guy I knew that had the uniform on. So that was for me, my experience.
Well, some of them wear that uniform like Superman's cape. We'll leave it like that.
We're going to be paying extra.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Hey, we're going to wrap here. Appreciate retired JSO Lieutenant Norm Brewer, Stormin' Norman, joining us, and we're going to have him back.
We'll have him back on the Romans Burning episode because he can.
Yeah. Next episode, we're going to have a current in-service DEA agent who got into a pretty good gun battle recently. I say recently, like a year ago, got shot up pretty good. He's going to tell us a story about it. So make sure you don't miss that on RealJax with Jim and Larry. We'll see you next time.